If a girl never had a dad in the home, showing her security, respect, providing for the family, treating her mother like a lady, how is she gonna learn that? If a girl doesn't have that model in her head to make that comparison, she maybe has created a fantasy image of what the perfect man and father will be in her mind that actually doesn't exist.
When times get tough, you need to get down. No need to look backward, put your feet on the ground. Stand up, stand up.
Welcome to the Fallen State. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you all for being with me. Don't forget that the Fallen State is now on locals.com, so click the link in the description to support our work. And thank you all in advance. I have with me Jana Herde. She is a relationship coach and guide who specializes in reconnecting fathers with their daughters. Jana, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, you guys, for inviting me. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes. And so you're doing a very needed thing because women need to reconnect with their fathers. I notice that they have a lot of issues when they're not close to their fathers. What made you decide to do this?
Actually, I guess to understand better why I actually chose to do this, it's always helpful to look at my backstory a little bit, at my childhood. And I actually grew up fatherless myself. For many years in my childhood, I was fatherless. I was raised by a very loving single mother. Later, a sister came along. She's 7 years younger than me. And when I was around 11, my mother remarried, and I had a terrific, very good stepdad. But let's say that the damage was already done. The whole basis for your development, I mean, it's already done at 10, 11. And of course, you can learn different things. And it was great to have my stepdad, who passed away last year, sadly, and I miss him very much. But I know what it is to not have your father in the home, to have a father who really doesn't care much, who doesn't get in touch much, or doesn't get in touch for many years. To be a kid and say, I don't know if my dad is alive or if he's actually not around anymore, because I have no way of finding out. So by the time I was divorced myself, and I spent 8 years of my life as a single mother, as a divorced single mother, I started to teach Spanish in my home to children and adults. And I discovered that I actually had a talent for teaching, and I enjoyed it very much. So later, I found that I wanted to help people differently, not only learning a language. So I began coaching and self-educating to be able to help people. And even 2 years in, I saw that only life coaching wasn't really my thing. And I thought there must be something else I'm not doing, something else I could give to people that is valuable. So I got in touch with a lady who is a life coach in Europe. And her specialty is actually to help people find out what actually, what their thing actually is. And we found out together that I wanted to help daughters, let's say, have a different outcome than I had.
Yes.
So I decided to help the fathers by questioning what my father could have done to gain my trust and to rebond with me. And he didn't do any of that, really. He didn't. So I figured that other fathers who actually want to reconnect and are willing to learn might be happy to have somebody guiding them through that process. And it turned out to work very well.
Amazing.
So from there, I started doing more.
So did you know your father at all?
Yes, I mean, I knew who he was. I met him, I would say, not more than 5 times till the time I was 18.
Right.
So I met him only on a few occasions where we coincidentally met him, not that he actually came to see me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I knew him, but I was always pretty confused how he could act that normal and then be out of my life and actually not do anything like I saw other fathers do. So I grew up quite biased due to that.
Amazing. So when you ask him why wasn't he around, why did he leave you, what did he say?
Um, Actually, he came to see me. That's the only time he did when I was 18. And I think his thought process must have been, oh, now that she's 18, she will understand me. I'll just go and tell her why I wasn't there. So he actually did that, which was quite a shock for me. Fathers out there, never do this. Just to show up without getting in touch first. Please don't.
Right.
And he actually was mad because he expected me to be interested in knowing why he wasn't there and how hard his life had been, because to him, the circumstances were responsible for his actions, not himself. So he never actually admitted that he had other priorities or that he didn't get in touch because it was his choice. He never really apologized, and he always blames others for the circumstances. That's what he does till this day. So it's very difficult for him, I think, to understand.
So he came around you at 18, when you were 18 years old, and he tried to make up with you, but it didn't work out? Is that what happened?
Well, he came, and I was a bit shocked, and I said, wait here. And I remember very clearly going up the stairs to get my mom to say, oh my God, he's here. What is he doing here? Did he call you? Can you help me? And my mom said, yeah, of course. So she came down and she said, look, I actually just baked a cake. Would you like to have, coffee and cake with us? So he came up and we served him coffee, and I was, of course, very nervous. And then I said, well, why are you here? And then he felt pretty offended, or kind of expected that I would be asking him questions so he could have a chance to explain something. But I remember being very angry at 18 years old and saying, look, I'm not interested in all these things. I would like to know why you were not here, why you never called, why you never helped mom when she needed your help. And he said, well, you guys are very mean. You're accusing me. You don't let me really defend myself. So I'm going to go. So I remember him standing up and going, apparently feeling very offended. And my mom told him, look, don't be a coward, just sit down and let's talk. It's fine. Nobody is attacking you. But he didn't really get it. So he disappeared again for about, 10 years. And then it was me reconnecting again. So that's what happened in my case, pretty much.
Did you ever forgive him for not being around? Did you forgive him?
I'm still on it, I must say. And I know this sounds very unpopular because we hear so much, even from coaches who are much more famous than I am. We often hear, you need to forgive. Forgiving is the only way.
Yeah.
It's going to heal and change everything. I actually believe that if it doesn't come naturally, you shouldn't force yourself to say, I forgive you to somebody.
Right.
So I kind of have come to terms with the fact that he will never be able to apologize to me or take responsibility. I have no hate in my heart anymore. I have no big anger. And I guess, at some point I'll be able to forgive, I guess. But I don't force myself to do so.
And what is holding you back from forgiving him? If you want to be free, why haven't you forgiven him? Because he could not help himself. Just as your mother couldn't help herself, you couldn't help yourself. Why not forgive him so you can be free?
That's a good question. Actually, 2 days ago, I was watching a documentary about people who had been very abused in their childhoods. And a lot of them said that they had forgiven their perpetrators because they also had terrible childhoods, and probably they were in a similar situation. So I said to myself, I'm actually ready to forgive, but still, I don't want to say it or tell him if I feel that it's still not 100% clear or honest.
Right.
So I kind of give myself the time. But it's changed. I mean, my feeling has changed a lot. If I look at myself 10 years ago, I was totally unable to get past this, to say, okay, he's just the way that he is. He'll never able to say certain things. I can't expect things from people that they're somehow not able to give or to say. But I know he also grew up with a lot of lacking a lot of love, I think, from
Yeah.
his parents. I know his father passed away, so it's a generational thing. He had a father problem as well
Yes.
because he didn't have his father. He had a mother who was very bitter and just tried her best, after World War II. So she didn't have many choices or help at all to emotionally support herself or a child at all. So I know that he does what he can do with what he has, but maybe it's not much. So I have empathy for him and I have compassion, but like 100% forgive, it's still a bit hard for me to do somehow. I don't
Really?
know, maybe I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
Could be.
Do you believe he loved you?
I believe he has love for me, but I'm not sure if he really knows what genuinely loving a child means. And I also suspect he is a narcissist. So he's very childish. He still thinks he sees himself as a victim almost 100% of the time. So
Right.
I don't really know if he knows how to love his children.
And what,
So
when you say you don't believe he knows what genuine love is for a child, what is genuine love for a child?
I think it means to love unconditionally,
What do you
right?
mean
I
by
mean, you don't
that?
have to learn to love your child, I guess. I mean, I love my child since before she was born. And it's something that has grown naturally. And even if she grows up to make choices I don't agree with, I will love her regardless. With
Do-
him, with my biological father, I feel that he gets love and attention from people, but he's not ready often to give the same back.
Do you need,
So
as an adult, do you need him to love you in order to love him? In order for you
not
to love him?
anymore.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Do you
Not
love him?
anymore. I mean, I do, but to an extent. Stepfather more, I must say. I mean, let's say one thing, and I'm going to admit, I've never admitted this in public actually, but maybe someone else out there, feels the same way.
Right.
So I'm just going to say it. He is actually a person that if he wasn't a relative of mine, I would never choose to be friends with him or to be around him much. So he doesn't have a personality that I enjoy most of the time. I don't like his choices. I don't like how he treats certain people. So not only me, but several people in his family have trouble being in touch with him or having him in their lives. So it's not to justify myself or anything, but I really believe he has a personality disorder. I really do. So
Is that a
he's
reason?
not really able to understand.
Is that a reason not to love him?
I don't know if it's a reason not to love him. It's a reason not to engage with him much or not to pursue much contact with him. Because it gives me it is trouble. Let's say that talking to him always means being called something or being accused of doing something wrong. So you stop calling people if the result is always, negative for you.
Yeah.
So it's like I tolerate him and I have empathy and compassion for him, but I just don't feel any obligation to let him abuse my energy.
What do you think will happen if you called him? What do you think will happen if you called him and said to him, you know what? I understand. I'm sorry for resenting you. I realize now that you couldn't help yourself, and I'm wrong for holding anything against you. I'm sorry. What do you think will happen?
I don't really know. I mean, sometimes it's like a surprise. You never know what you're gonna get.
Right.
I think he would be happy that I call.
Yeah.
So, and it's not that I never do. I mean, a few months ago, we called him with my daughter just to let him know where we live now because we moved and that we're fine and everything. So it's not that I reject contact with him per se, but I just don't seek it much because it often leads to trouble that I don't think I caused or I have to endure. So maybe I will tell him in the future. I told him once, like, look, it's all fine. I don't have hate in my heart at all. I said, I don't expect you to do anything specific anymore. It's fine, we all do what we can do. But of course, I don't think I have to allow him or anybody you know,
You
abuse
don't.
my
You're right.
feelings or me as a person
You're right
just
about
because
that.
he's my dad. I mean,
You're right about that, but you're not going to be free within until you apologize for resenting him because, or having anger toward him because he couldn't help himself. And when you hold the anger against him, you're as bad as he is. It doesn't mean you got to hang out with him. You just have to have him
yes.
over, but you're not going to be free until you stop judging him, until you apologize for resenting him. Otherwise, you're going to pass that anger on to your daughter because you can't love your daughter and hate your father.
Well, I don't think that is true.
You don't think what is
I
true?
don't really think. I don't think it's true that you cannot love your kids only because you have a complicated relationship with a parent. I mean, I believe that once somebody is an adult and had like 10 years of his daughter whom he abandoned, actually coming to his house, giving him things that he needs, taking care of him to an extent, allowing him to have a very good relationship with my daughter, not really treating him, badly or anything, really being generous and open to rebonding and having that relationship. I think once you've had your daughter doing that for about a decade and you're still not willing to say, look, actually, I should have never abandoned you in that way, or I should have at least asked if you're eating or if your asthma is better, or if you're, if they're not bullying you in school anymore, I should have protected you from so much. I don't think that gives, I don't think I owe him much more understanding.
But
He's over
forgiving
70
him,
years old. I mean, I think he should take some accountability, just,
how
to
old
be
is
honest,
he?
at least, to be transparent.
How old is he?
He was born in 48,
Oh,
I
okay.
think. Yeah.
So he's about 74.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Um,
And after 10 years of living in the same building, he never really was able to say, look, I hope you can forgive me. What I did was wrong. He
and
never really did it. He then accused me of not being nice enough. So I don't think I owe him more understanding,
but
really.
forgiveness, apologizing for resenting him is for you, and that's what forgiveness is when we are sorry for judging other people. How can you love your daughter and not love him? You either love
It's
all
not
or you
that
love none.
I don't think that is true.
Why
Really.
not?
I mean, because I love a lot of people in my life a lot. I love also my mom to death, even though she made some mistakes in her life that maybe affected me, but I know she's my mother and she always took responsibility for things. She's able to have a conversation with me about many things. Even if I say, look, mom, don't you think that was wrong or we could have done better here? I mean, she's honest and she loves me unconditionally, and so do I. So I
Have you
can look past
have you forgiven
things that I
her?
might not like about. Of course.
You told
I
her.
have nothing to forgive her for.
Did you tell your mother you forgive her for those things you didn't like that she did to you?
Yes, I mean, she never actually did anything intentionally to hurt me. She just was a single mom who also had trouble in her childhood. So she did the best she could, but she was always caring. She always put her kids first. She always even, took responsibility when she saw that she maybe messed up,
And so you apologized to your mother for resenting her for some of the things she did wrong?
I don't know. I mean, I never saw it this way, that I have to ask for forgiveness for feelings I
No,
have.
you don't have to ask for forgiveness, but you apologize for resenting them because
Apologizing.
I'm sorry for resenting you. I realize you couldn't help yourself now. I'm a grown woman. I understand now.
Yeah.
And I know you did your best. And I'm sorry for resenting you for being so, I'm just throwing out things, so imposing. You know how mothers like to impose their will on their children? And I'm sorry for resenting you for imposing your will on me. And because you don't ask them for apology, you apologize for judging them.
I didn't say it in these words, but I've written to her multiple times saying that I'm actually very grateful for, how good of a mother she has been, even, taking into account all the circumstances around her. I don't know. I think she knows that I never meant to say anything hurtful, even the times where I maybe was angry. I mean, I think it happens to all of us sometimes,
It
but I don't
does.
really judge her at all.
It does happen to everyone, but that's why if you apologize for resenting her for the things she did, then God will forgive you, and He would take her identity away from you, and then you will pass on love to your kids and everyone else. And love doesn't mean you got to hang out with them. It doesn't mean you have to talk to them on the phone all the time or anything. It just make you free, set you free, so you can have your own life without repeating what your parents did.
Yeah, I've been working for many years now to break the cycle, and I think I'm being even a bit successful at it. My daughter is having a very different outcome than I have, which is better. But thank you for the advice. I mean, I'll take it seriously.
Yeah.
I really will.
And
Thank you.
so you've been married before, right? Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
you're no longer married?
No, actually, the marriage that I was in didn't last very long.
Was it
So
difficult
I
for him?
wasn't married for a long time.
Was it difficult for him to deal with you?
For my ex-husband, you mean?
Yeah, was it difficult for your ex-husband to deal with you due to the anger that you have?
I guess it was sometimes difficult, and it was also difficult for me to deal with him. I mean, we weren't very compatible, to be honest. So I think for both of us, it was hard to deal with each other. And probably, I mean, I still hadn't figured out a lot of the things I know now.
Yeah.
So I was still pretty much biased about a lot of things. And well, I know that I picked him because he's a very kind, loving person, and we have a lot of the same values. But thing is, I mean, that's also maybe a little bit too much information, but we didn't know each other for that long
Right.
before we got a child and got married. So I think if we would have known each other for years, maybe before taking that step, we would have never gotten married, or we wouldn't have had a child. I don't know.
Right.
But I don't want to question it anymore because I have an amazing daughter, and he kind of gave her to me. And my daughter loves her father very much, and we have a very nice, kind, loving relationship right now. We talk pretty often, and I don't resent him at all, and he doesn't resent me at all either.
Nice.
So
And so he's close to his daughter?
yes,
Oh, good.
yes, I made sure.
Are you a Christian?
No, I'm not. I was raised in Spain in a Catholic culture, let's say, and I would sing in the choir, and I would love going to the church and everything.
Yeah.
But my mother chose not to baptize me. She grew up Catholic as well in Germany, but which was uncommon. But so I never got baptized. I never kind of decided or committed to one religion. But I believe in a higher power, and I always say, I'm totally down with Jesus. So I believe his teachings are very valuable, and
Yeah.
I think it's good that my daughter also knows them. And now I live in a country that is very much Christian as well. So, but I'm not.
And so is it harder? You're working with daughters and fathers, trying to bring them, reconnect them back together. Is that difficult to do, to bring the fathers and daughters together?
I mainly, I would say to 95%, I work with the fathers only and help them to find the way back, because they have the responsibility as fathers, and they want to know, what can I do differently because it didn't work last time? Or look, I'm being alienated from my child. How do I communicate better so my child trusts me? So I help the fathers down that path. Okay, I don't know if you want me to specify. It's like 2 or 3 different types of problems that I help resolve.
Okay.
One would be the father who says, look, I haven't seen my daughter in 10 years. I didn't raise her. For some reason, I stepped away. I want to reconnect with her because now I know where she lives, or I could call her, or I tried before, but she rejected me. What can I do? That's what I call the classic reconnection training. Then I have the fathers who are going through a custody battle, divorce, maybe already divorced, who experience alienation. So the mother doesn't co-parent or doesn't allow them to see their kids at all. or the whole thing is very, very difficult and stressful. So I help them navigate that situation so they have better outcomes, communicate better, avoid additional stress and troubles, and also help them be alert, because some fathers ignore a lot of red flags, so they don't act on time. And this way, you know, at least for some fathers, I can help them avoid a lot of disaster, I think. And then I have the fathers who already have been successful with the custody battle, and co-parenting goes quite well. And they say, look, what do I do now? Now that my kids are with me again, how do I connect with them? Because a lot of harm was done. You know, what can I do to rebond with them, to show them that I'm really there and available all the time? So not every father has exactly the same set of issues.
Right.
And it's a sad fact that a lot of my clients really experience parental alienation to some degree, which is something I wasn't even aware of when I was younger.
Right. What which age group do you deal with? Teenagers, adults, or both?
Well, fathers, of course, and they have children all ages. I have clients who have daughters who are 4 years old, teenagers, even adult daughters who are in their 20s, and they're kind of coming around, and dad is trying to learn how to reconnect successfully, really, how to help her not reject him, or how to deal with also what she might throw at him at first. I mean, it's difficult if you haven't really raised your daughter, and then you don't know what her reality was like, so you don't know what her head and her heart, what her emotional landscape looks like. And I usually know that pretty well because I've been in the same position.
Yeah.
So that usually is very helpful. At least that's what they say, like, oh, this was a game changer for me. I wrote a little book about it. I want to publish that. It's a tool a lot of people use when they first meet me. I send it to them or they buy it. And it's called Reconnection, the Basics.
What do you say to fathers who children refuse to connect with them? What do you say to the fathers then?
It is difficult to go into specifics because every father is like a different world, really.
Yeah.
But in general terms, of course, it depends on where they're at. I have fathers who cry in the first consultation because they say, I never have been able to talk about this with anybody who actually understands what I'm saying and what I'm going through. Someone who doesn't look at me and says, oh my God, you're crazy, this cannot be. So they're often very emotional. So I first let them know, of course, that I won't judge them, that I'm not there to judge, that it's normal that they feel highly anxious or even depressed or feel a lot of fear and frustration all the time. A lot of them feel that they have been unfairly treated by the system, involving lawyers, family courts, social workers, whatever, and that the system really has let them down and also failed their children. A lot of them feel that way.
Yeah.
So I think it is important to first give them a space where they feel heard and that they belong. That's why I organize also Zoom calls with other fathers so they see they're not alone. That's one thing that I let's say to them or give them. And depending on what their issues are, some of them feel guilty or feel that their kids reject them because maybe they did something wrong. So I usually tell them that if the other parent is really maliciously, alienating that kid from them, lying to the kids, telling them their father is dangerous, whatever, which is terrible, that it's not their fault because it's not their, they're not responsible of what actions she is taking and what she's doing to the kids. So they shouldn't feel guilt for that because then they're less able to really take action. And also I tell them if your child could see you, they wouldn't want you to feel that bad because they know it's not your fault,
Nice. What do you
it's
think?
difficult. It's a very complex issue to navigate.
Yeah. What do you think of mothers who turn the children away from their fathers, and they lie to the children about the father, and they never say to the children, "Your father left me. He loved you. He did not leave you. He left me because I was so difficult to deal with. And they take the men to court. They try to fight to keep, all kind of mess. What do you think about women that are like that?
First thing, I mean, I think it's a disgrace. It's so disgraceful, and it's shameful.
Yeah.
I mean, I as a woman sometimes feel bad. Like, come on, ladies, why do you do that? You make all of us even look bad if you do this. That's one thing. If I'm selfish, that's what I think sometimes.
Yeah.
When I look at it overall, according to what I read, what I do research in, and my experience, I really believe most of the mothers who radically alienate and are totally able to abuse their children psychologically, emotionally, whatever, depriving them of their father also, they have a personality disorder. I don't really think they're stable. I mean, I think we're not dealing with healthy people there.
Yeah.
I think they really have issues. And I'm not a psychologist. I cannot diagnose people at all, not even if I would have them in front of me, because I don't have the test and the stuff to do so, and I'm not qualified. But I've dealt with fathers who even confirmed to me that they had a psychological evaluation, their ex had, and a lot of them display, histrionic tendencies, narcissism, a few different conditions that I think cause that behavior, because they seem not to have empathy for the kids.
Yeah.
They seem to hate their ex more than they actually love their kids, which is very disturbing. And I think a healthy mother, a healthy person, would not operate this way, or would not throw false allegations, destroying the father's reputation,
Yeah.
telling people that he abused her or the kids, or that is absolutely awful. And most of the time, I think it's fair to say most of the time, the system, or let's say the courts, cannot really reverse it effectively. And often women get away with these false allegations. I mean, yeah, that's the other thing. Family court doesn't really work like criminal court. I mean, it doesn't work the way most people think
Yeah.
it works.
Absolutely.
Right?
Why do you think men around the world are so hated? Men are the most hated species on this side of heaven. Why do you think that is?
I think the problem is even more located in the Western world, or at least if it's happening in other countries too that are not Western, then I guess we are leading in the tendency of hating men.
Right.
Yeah, it has become okay to mock fathers, to make them appear dumb and useless in media, in ads. I mean, I was raised in the 80s and was a teenager in the 90s. I still grew up without a phone, without internet, without all that stuff. And I remember the ads back in the day. It wasn't the same.
Right.
The way fathers were portrayed and men were portrayed when I was really young was not the same at all. And I believe, if you see it in the media, if you see it in schools even, that feminism is taught so much that even I was very much biased because of my upbringing. And then that even was supported by feminist ideology in schools. So I think there is a plan, or there is a common interest in making men, weak.
Yeah.
Or
absolutely.
I really think there is a plan, because otherwise it wouldn't happen everywhere. It wouldn't be. I don't think it is an accident at all, and we desperately need strong, confident men in our society.
Yeah.
We really need them.
Absolutely. I've noticed that the reason for men being hated so much is because of the order of God. You have God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over children. And so that spirit that comes from evil spirit that comes from hell, it dwells inside the woman. And it's not the woman, but it's that anger spirit that made a home in her, that was passed down to her mother. It hates the spirit of God in the man. And so that spirit is trying to destroy the spirit of God, because men represent, even the beta males, they still represent God on earth. and they've just been turned away from
Yeah.
the Father, but they see it. So it's a spiritual battle. So the evil spirit of the woman hate the good spirit of the man, which is of God. And that's why you have that battle going on, and I don't think most people understand that.
I maybe would explain it in a different way or word it differently because I don't have the knowledge I think you have, which
Right.
is more, the spiritual way of explaining that. But I think actually there are concepts that are universal. And when I see how they vilify men and how boys even are at a disadvantage today,
Yeah.
even starting in school, it doesn't even matter if you're religious or not. That is just evil. It's
Yes.
just a terrible thing to do. And they have preached equality for so long that nobody seems to mind now that boys are, missing out on stuff,
Yeah.
not getting us educated, having more issues. I mean, most suicides are men. Most people living on the streets are men. I thank men on a daily basis for doing all the heavy jobs that I don't want to do and I'm not able to do. And I know that if men would be like all disappearing tomorrow, all the infrastructure, the world as we know it today would collapse.
Yeah.
So I always get a bit angry even when I see women being so annoying and saying, well, we don't really need men. If we could reproduce without them, like, why do you need them? Well, yeah. I mean, take a society, any society, take away the fathers and you see what happens. And I mean, the evidence is there. The studies have been done. We all know it. And I know because I had no father. So later, luckily, I woke up and I saw that I was part of a terrible statistic that was really real, and that some of my problems, like my high anxiety, my trust issues, the lack of trust in a man, in certain ways, I couldn't really experience that until I woke up
Yeah.
and understood that my father was not the norm. And I had a very good friend who said, Jana, you're too angry, but you have to understand that most fathers care. Your father is not the norm. Not all men are bad or don't take responsibility or abandon, their kids and the mothers of their children. And it took me many years to do that. So I believe many women are not as lucky if they're fatherless, so they might never get it. And if you then confront them with social media, with television, with all that anti-man propaganda, let's say, if you want to call it that, I mean, how are they supposed to wake up and see that men are essential for the kids, for the family, for society?
Yeah, absolutely.
I really believe that.
Have you worked with mothers, or do you just particularly
Yes.
work with the fathers?
Let's say that I'm very specialized on the father-daughter dynamic,
Right.
especially if
Right.
he has been away for some time. But I actually have, and this was a surprise to me, I actually have almost half my following on Instagram, where I post daily content, are women. So I have more and more women reaching out on behalf of their significant others or their husbands because they're being alienated from a child from a previous marriage, or there is something going on where they need help with. So more and more ladies are reaching out, and I have coached mothers too, one-on-one, who have been alienated and needed some insight and to really understand what was going on, to reconnect and open communication again. So I actually do work with mothers as long as we're on the same page,
Yeah.
and I see I can help, I do. But of course, the majority of my clients are men.
Should a man date or marry a woman who doesn't have a good relationship with her father?
Well, I would say that if you as a young man would have that rule, like, look, to make sure I don't get in trouble if I see, a girl has a problem with men in general or with her father to begin with, I just don't want to date a woman like that because it could be trouble. Let's say I wouldn't tell him that it's wrong, but of course, sometimes you might meet women where there is a particular reason maybe, where they don't get along, but it doesn't mean she will not be able to have a good marriage. But I understand, let's say, why some men don't want that. Or
Yeah.
a woman who has no father. who has a very dominant mom, maybe no man in the household, maybe a general negative view when it comes to men. I mean, I had that too for many years as a young lady. So I understand. Same with single mothers. Should you date a single mom?
Right. I was going to ask, should a man date a woman that, should a man date or marry a woman that already have children, have a child or children? And especially if she's been married before, but not only, should a man get involved with a woman who already has a family?
Again, I understand men who say, look, it's just not worth the risk for me.
Right.
I understand them, and I think they absolutely have the right to have that preference to just not date or commit to a woman who already has children from a previous marriage or previous relationships, because that's what I see often. Women who have 3 kids from 2 different men, and then they have another new boyfriend, and I sometimes don't understand why men would not think twice.
Yeah.
Because maybe there is a pattern. Maybe this woman really has a difficulty with bonding, or with, I don't know. They always can say, oh no, but it was the man's fault. I think it always takes 2.
It does.
So it does. And of course, I have a lot of empathy for women who maybe are fatherless, so they don't even know how to commit because their mother never did. So I understand really where that comes from. But I think men as a whole don't owe you particular understanding, or you don't deserve
Right.
special treatment. Or a man doesn't have to pay for your problems. And I have experienced that myself. My current significant other is a great, great guy. And he once told me, like, look, I understand what happened to you in childhood. I totally get it. But sometimes there's things you say, where I sometimes stay quiet. But let me tell you now, that's not my problem. It's not my fault.
Yeah.
If other people hurt you, so please try not to do that. And I fully understand. He's totally right. So if you're not willing to correct yourself and to get rid of those patterns somehow, then, you cannot expect a good guy to actually tolerate that.
I noticed that, I also realized that a man should not, or a woman really, should not get involved with another man or a woman while they have children, because the kids yearn for their natural father, and they don't want a stepmother or stepfather. They only want their fathers. But the parents are so selfish that because they're all about themselves, and so let the kids suffer by bringing a step parent into their lives and making the kids even more angrier, adding to the anger by doing that. And the parents don't care. The mothers don't care, and the kids suffer even more so.
That happens a lot, and I myself have a little bit of first-hand experience. I mean, my sister and I don't have the same father. We're 7 years apart. And I think my mother was still dealing with stuff herself. She also had an absent father.
Yeah.
Her situation was a completely different one because she grew up in a nuclear family. But let's say her real father was a mystery till a certain age. People back then were ashamed of these things, so they didn't really address it. So she grew up with a loving family, and she says she had a very nice childhood, actually, a very beautiful one. But she didn't meet her biological father till much later, and he never really was much in the picture. So I think she carried her own trauma and stuff too.
Yeah.
So when she had my sister, again, it was with a man who wasn't really interested in commitment. So he didn't really act like a proper stepdad or somebody who would really step in. So it wasn't the best experience for me. And I saw a lot of patchwork families. That's what they call them, right? At least in Europe, they do. I've met a lot of people with these constellations, like 2 people marry and they already have kids from previous relationships. And it can turn out quite well, and that everybody gets along and they co-parent with their, fathers, mothers. But it also, I think it doesn't go well in many, many cases. And some kids don't even speak up to say, look, mom, I just don't want to deal with these kids. They're not good to me, or he's not good to me. I just don't like it. It's like the family that was actually theirs doesn't exist anymore. And now they're forced to be in a situation where the parents, the mother or the father is happy. I think people should think twice and
Yeah.
really analyze why they're doing that. And I don't say it to judge people or to mean that all blended families are bad, but I think it really needs very conscious people who think, mature people to be able to pull that off, taking into account the kids.
Were women created to lead or follow?
I believe to follow.
Nice. And why do men get with women that's trying to lead them? Because women hate weak men. They want you to be strong.
Yes.
They want you to be strong, but they'll take you if you're weak and destroy you. Why do men listen to women? Why do you think they follow women, knowing that women were created to follow and not lead?
Very, very good question. And I hate, no, I don't hate. I know that the radical feminists are going to hate me for saying this. They sometimes comment on my profile and tell me that I'm sexist, that I'm a misogynist, that I hate women and mothers. And well, if they think that, so be it. There is plenty of women that I help who seem to get it, so
absolutely.
they don't have a problem with me. But what I want to make very clear is that I'm not against women having a profession or leading in a particular context, or leading their kids when it's necessary, when they're in charge of their kids. Of course, they need to listen to you. But I think that it's very rare to find a woman who's actually suited to have that, to how do you say it in English? A woman that is really suited to develop that role or to excel in a role of high leadership. I think that's really rare. And I believe women are often not telling the truth because if you look in many Western countries, who is voting for the head of state or something? I mean, women are not always voting for the women. If there is a candidate, they seem to know that men make good leaders. That's why they vote the men. So I don't know the exact numbers on that. And I always try to tell people, like, I don't live in the US. I don't only talk for the US. I try to speak for, the Western countries, also in Europe and Canada and stuff. And you see that in some countries, even more women vote than men in certain places. And there is more women than men in the world. So I believe many women hate to hear that leadership is, that men are actually the natural leaders. I mean, it took me many years myself to understand that. And it's because I had no father in the home. So in my home, my mom was God. She was the only reference person I had. She was the only one taking responsibility. And I must say, I had a good mother who was disciplined, who was very industrious, who did what she could really to give us a good life and give us a good education and stuff. And she taught me many, many things. But she sometimes said that when I was already in my late teens and early 20s, I heard her say, like, look, I know, that my life has, is the way it is, but actually I'm like the man in the house. But this is not the way that I should be operating, Actually, the man should give the security, should provide, should solve certain things. I shouldn't have to worry about that, but well, that's what it is. So if I have to do it, I will, to the best of my ability. And to your question, why do men listen to women? I actually believe Jordan Peterson explained that very well. I listened to him once say that of course women who have a problem with men, they either had a problem with their father or didn't have one, or they will often look for men that they can control and manipulate so they don't feel threatened by the man.
Yeah.
So I guess it's these men who listen to women or let them lead. Often it's, they either pick these women because maybe they have a problem too. I don't know what happened with them.
Yeah, they have a mama problem.
They want to submit. Yeah, I don't know exactly. But what I'm sure, and I've seen this with a lot of baby boomers, women who ended up being divorced once, twice, 3 times, who then end up in the end picking a man who's weak, where I think, why the hell, after 2 divorces and family and being a very, being a woman with experience, who's not dumb, who's educated, I don't know, why do you want to spend the last 30 years of your life with a guy who's weak?
Amazing.
and everybody sees it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's their thing. They think they feel less threatened by men who are weak. That's
Amazing.
my opinion.
And then they hate the man for it.
Yes.
I also see that a man should never, ever, ever, but never, 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 ever, 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 never, 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 ever, 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 never, never, never marry a woman who is educated and a woman who is educated. Because I know that women are already angry because they didn't have fathers growing up. But when they're educated, they really go on a big ego trip. And so an educated woman would never make for a good wife and a mother. So I advise men not to marry a woman she's been educated. What do you think about that?
I will tell you this. I understand why you're saying it, and I understand why, let's say, where the idea comes from.
Yes.
But I think it depends also on the country, on what education women are getting, and what their general disposition is. Because, okay, let me make this example. I have heard wealthy, affluent guys, who have leadership in their firms or, wherever they are operating in. They are leaders and people listen to them. They're in charge of stuff. They have, very skilled men who actually have a lot of options. They're still quite young. They could marry any woman they want. And some of them I've heard say, look, what I don't want is a woman who's never agreeable, who's always combative and who competes with me, but
Yeah.
a woman who has an education and I can take her anywhere. She maybe has, back in the day, they used to give, a lot of rich families used to give their daughters like, how do you call it? An education, very humanistic, or that included literature, art, culture. So they were actually able to conduct themselves a certain way so they would know what people talk about, say, does it make sense?
I've
Because
heard.
they thought that it was good for young ladies or for women to have an education, but they didn't educate them, I don't know, to be the same as a man.
Right.
And I think that's where the problem comes. If you go to university because they told you men and women are exactly the same, there's no difference. Back in the day, they didn't let you go to med school because you were oppressed. But now that you can go, and that's going to be more important than anything, and being a housewife is somehow degrading, or that you're dumb or don't accomplish anything in your life, that's the problem. If you chose a profession because you don't think men and women have a difference at all, and you think that's going to be the most important thing, then you have a problem. If you have a lady who has an education but she wants to be a wife because family is really important to her, and she knows that complementing her man is the goal and not competing or, always sticking out everywhere. It's a complex issue. I mean, it has to do with cultural things. How do you conduct yourself as a woman,
Yeah.
What is your goal? What do you think is important there?
I noticed with the blacks, the primary problem is that the blacks are being raised without two parents in the home, so they don't have the fathers there to protect them from the mothers, and so the mothers end up recreating the boys and the girls are her image with her anger, and then they go out into the world. The government tells the black mother that you're the best, you're this, you're a queen, and they give her welfare, they give her everything free, and then now they're educating the black women. And it has gotten to the point that black women, not all, but most, they really believe that they're better than the black man and they won't listen. And so it's impossible to bring them together as a family because she really believes that she is above the man and she would never listen to a man. And they'll call
that's a problem.
Yeah, and they'll call it racism and all that, but it's not racism. It starts in the home with the anger of the mother.
Yeah, well, I guess you can guess that looking the way I look, I don't say certain things without people getting totally crazy. I've had people, I mean, let's say I like to learn. So I'm naturally curious about stuff. And because I do this work that I do, I mean, I also help Black fathers, for example, from New York or wherever they come from. Only one time did I have a father? And it wasn't even the father himself. It was his rep, because he was an affluent guy, who had a profession where he needs somebody to represent him and deal with certain issues for him. And that was the only time where somebody asked me questions that were very awkward to me, questions about race. And that guy actually told me, have you ever coached Black fathers? Because maybe you don't know how to do that because you're not Black yourself. And I remember being totally weirded out by the question because I didn't even know what to say to that at first, because I don't make any differences. For me, the fathers are all the same.
It is.
I understand that there is issues in in that community in particular, because I do research. I'm the one who will spend hours on YouTube listening to Black people talking about these problems in their group, or I don't know if I can call it that, if I'm allowed to do that. Sometimes you have to be careful, and then they say, you're white, that's why you don't know how to call things.
But that's not true, though. It's the same thing in all families. It has nothing to do with color.
Yeah, but this guy actually asked me that, and I thought, well, what does that mean? That unless I coach Black fathers and I do, or that I'm not able to do it somehow because I'm not Black myself? I didn't really understand why the question was relevant to him. And I, of course, was polite and said, look, I'm really not used to that line of questioning, but okay, I guess that's what you mean. I have clients from all over the globe. Doesn't matter if they're from India or from the States, Black or white, or from Spain or Mexico. I don't care. They have the same issues.
Why didn't you tell him that's a dumb question?
Well, I guess because it wasn't the beginning of my coaching online. It was one of the first interactions ever I had with somebody who approached me online, and then happened to be a guy who's known in his particular field. I didn't even know, because I don't know the sports in the US. I don't know who plays what. I'm not really interested per se. I actually ended up not working with that father because his rep told him not to do so, basically.
Wow. I think it's so dumb. It's so dumb when the Blacks say, well, you don't understand because you're not Black. It's a blind person saying something like that. We are all human beings. We all come through crazy families. We all have crazy ideas until we start to overcome them. It has nothing to do with color at all. Not one iota. I got to ask you. It doesn't. Yeah, it has nothing to do with color. It really doesn't. I got to ask you this because of time here.
Of course.
What do you think about the Great White, even though you're in Europe, what do you think about the Great White Hope?
The Great what? I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Though you live in Europe, what do you think about the Great White Hope?
Does that relate to the candidate for presidency in the U.S.? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, Donald Trump, the Great White. I call Donald Trump the Great White Hope.
Okay. Yeah, I first didn't associate that. Well, I actually am from Europe, but the last couple of years I've been living in Central America, so I'm actually in Eastern time zone now all year long. Yes, but well, what do I think about that? I've never been somebody super interested in politics.
Right.
So there is stuff I probably ignore and I don't know enough about. But I will say this. All the news, the information, a lot of my clients are from the United States. They talk to me about a lot of things regarding school, their daily problems, law, family law, whatever.
Yes.
I believe Donald Trump, actually, when I hear him speak, of course, I only hear what I can hear. He often makes a lot of more sense. He seems to have much more common sense.
Absolutely.
Than other people than I see over there. And I don't really think people should, that's my opinion, I think people shouldn't look at what party they're voting, but what person and what this person stands for and what he will do. So if I was, a US citizen and I would live in certain states where certain things happen, even in schools, of course I would vote for somebody who doesn't, who doesn't share the opinions that these things are right or should be enforced.
Amazing. Amazing. What is a woman
What is a woman?
Yes.
I am one. A human female is a woman, right?
Yes.
I am one. My daughter is two. My mother is two.
Right
So
on.
it's a very awkward question, but I know why you're asking it, and I think it's hilarious that nowadays we have to ask that question.
And I also think it's crazy that it's an awkward question. It's just a simple
Yeah.
reality question. It shouldn't even have to be asked. So I got to
Yeah.
heat this up. I need to put you on the hot seat, and I need you
Good.
to answer these questions as quickly as possible.
Good.
The hot seat.
What is love?
Love is the most powerful human emotion.
Is it better for a child to be raised by a single mother or a single father?
Single father, according to the numbers.
Is America the best country on this side of heaven?
I don't think so.
Does a chicken have lips?
A chicken have lips? No, the chickens in my village don't. I don't know.
Do you believe in climate change?
I believe climate is changing, but not for the reasons they're telling us.
True or false, abortion is worse than slavery?
At least as bad.
Have you ever told anyone how the cow ate the cabbage?
No, I don't know what that means exactly. I'm sorry.
Should a
In
man
Germany, we eat a lot of cabbage.
should a man ever tell a woman his problems?
He could.
Did you take the jab?
No.
Are you a feminist?
No.
Did the bear shit in the woods?
Did what? I'm sorry.
Does a bear shit in the woods?
bear?
Yeah, does a bear shit in the woods?
I guess so. I've never met one, but I think they do.
Did you have fun?
I did. I did have a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I totally appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yes, and tell the people how to get your books, your podcast, whatever you're doing, your service or whatever you're doing.
Okay. You can find information about what I do on my website, www.janaherde.com. Herde is spelled like Herde, Herde. So that's my website. There you can find a button to donate if you want to support my work. You can also book a session, apply for one-on-one coaching, read some very valuable information. And if you want to get in touch through Instagram, it's Jana Coaching, all in one word. And there you have a link that if you follow that, you get invited to my Q&As that I do for free on Zoom for all my email subscribers. So there you can get a lot of information as well. And Jana H Coaching is my YouTube channel. Still very limited in content, but I hope to do more there very soon.
Amazing. We should tell the folks that Jana is Jana, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Jana. Yes. Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed it. It was amazing. And I hope we do this again.
Yes, anytime. I'll come on anytime if you want me here.
Absolutely. And thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget that the FatherlessState is now on locals.com. So click the link in the description just to support our work. Don't forget to like, follow, share, ring the bell. Check out our merch. Amazing merch there in the store, all right? Thank you all for tuning in. And thank you again, Jana.
Thank you.
All right, bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Amazing.